Saturday the 12th of April, Oliver Glasner warned one of the sport's most prestigious ever managers that his Crystal Palace side would solve and defeat his system.
As I said to Pep afterwards, if we meet again, you can't play in this system because we will solve it.
And over a month later, the Eagles sent City home trophyless for the first time in 7 years. It was a truly heroic, courageous, remarkable, exhilarating performance that well warranted a new name on the trophy of the FA Cup. Now, as the 24-25 season comes to an end, this will be my last video on Crystal Palace for a while, I promise. This will be my 6th this year, but how could I track the progress of Palace all year and just miss out on the most historic day in their history? It quite simply has to be done. Palace were immense and have been immense throughout their FA Cup run, smashing Fulham in their own backyard, smashing Unai Emery's Aston Villa at Wembley, and then beating the masters of English football over the last decade. Man City haven't been trophyless in a season since Pep first joined, which was 7 to 8 years ago, which is some achievement. So for Oliver Glasner and his side to step up and deny them of that is seriously impressive, especially after Manchester City beat them 5-2 a few weeks ago. However, let's dive right into the game. Palace with an unchanged lineup from the semi-final against Aston Villa. Kamada notably has really turned things around at the Eagles and makes the 11 over Lerma and Hughes. City set up in this way. 4 changes from the win against Forest, notably no Rico Lewis, no James McAtee, and a midfield pivot of Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva. No defensive midfielder, no Nico Gonzalez, no Ilkay Gundogan. A very interesting selection, to say the least. The game started with the expectation of Manchester City dominating, dictating the ball and looking to attack the Eagles, which they did. As I've repeated numerous times now, the opponents always start off the better team against Crystal Palace until they gradually grow into the game. But this match was different. Pep's team was always going to dominate. Everyone knew this. Palace would have very limited moments on the ball, but what they did with the ball would spark mostly from quick counter-attacks and direct pieces of play. Pep knew this. He also knew they'd dominate and Palace would sit deep, hence why he started a pivot of Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva, 2 huge technically gifted wizards of the ball that have a great eye for the pass, even if Bernardo has gone down a few notches this year. They'd be supported by Nico O'Reilly from left back to create a bit of a 3-3-4, looking for an overload, but numbers the deal with that Palace front 3. But the issue that comes of this is that those 2 players are not supposed to be together in a pivot. Bernardo can play from deep, sure, but with Rodri next to him, a pure monster at breaking up play, not Kevin De Bruyne, who's an attacking midfielder. Both those players don't have the same energy they had years ago. They're coming to the end of their career at the top level. And because those 2 are so familiar with being utilised much higher up in the half spaces attacking, they're used to being more wasteful, used to losing the ball a bit more and executing passes with a casual risk that is much higher and signified when you execute them deeper on the pitch, especially when it's 2 attacking midfielders trying to defend and not actually an accomplished defensive midfielder. So Palace could exploit this, and this was their plan. Palace only had 22% possession, so we're not going to talk about them much on the ball apart from this segment. Glasner's side from a goal kick played very short passes, like a lot of teams in modern day football. Henderson, Richards, Laguardia, Guehi were in the line of 4. The defence spreads nicely to involve Henderson in this play, as they look to knock it around a few times. City then look to press. You can see here the winger is looking rather intense, so Palace pull the City shape further forwards into their half. Then those short passes turn into one big direct one, looking for the Palace front 3. Mostly Mateta. The front 3 consisted of Mateta, who can hold up the ball, physically withhold the City defence and win headers, Eze, whose trickery and change of direction can beat anyone, and then Sarr, who can beat most players for speed and attack the channels. and then an extra man in Munoz, who's immensely athletic and can run up and down the flanks. So combine all of that together, it's a very nice mix, but it's super difficult for the midfield to contain. How's Kevin De Bruyne or Bernardo going to stop Sarr from blitzing by him for speed? Or Eze changing direction? Or Mateta's physicality? They can't. So that leaves the front three versus City's defence. The chaos, the dynamics and chemistry up against that City back line. And then a speedster Colombian attacking in behind a midfielder at left back. By playing a direct ball into space, you may lose it sometimes, but if you get it right, there's a fine chance of netting. Which funnily enough happened in the 15th minute. Palace build out, like we've discussed. Richard hits a long ball into Mateta, who pins back the City defender. Mateta lays it off to Kamara, who hits it back into Mateta, and he knows exactly where to put it. In behind the space for Munoz to exploit. He puts in a delivery and Eze puts it away. It's a brilliant move. Palace are playing to their strengths and into City's weaknesses in their starting 11. Mateta pins back a man, De Bruyne fails to cut it out, O'Reilly's exposed. It's exactly what they were looking for. And whenever they had a goal kick, they kept on doing that. The chances were very limited, but they trusted their game plan and it worked. Glasner knows his team is clinical and he's using that to perfection. But this itself was very limited because City had the ball, of course. So what did Palace do well without it? Well, Glasner's team executed the basics of football to a world-class level at the biggest of stages. Glasner sets his team up in a 3-2-5 out of possession. Eze, Mateta, Sarr in the front three. Once pushed back, it's a bit of a 5-4-1. But a lot of the time, Mateta drops in defensively to help out and keeps the shape compact, literally putting 11 men behind the ball, like a 5-5. But this is executed exceptionally. Palace off the ball are one of the best teams probably in England. Whilst higher in their 5-2-3 shape, the Palace front three are deep, staying compact, but the front three will individually leave from deep once their designated man gets the ball, simply just to keep proactive and force City back or side to side, as City spent a lot of time doing this. Once City progressed further into the half, Palace of course moved back and the wide forwards played a big role. City's quality is clear to see. Haaland, Marmoush, De Bruyne. We know this. So that means their biggest threat is centrally, and that's where City aim to overload. So Palace's line of 4 or 5 looks to drop in narrow, eliminating the space centrally so that City can't pass through whatsoever. So Haaland and Marmoush can't get the ball. Even when they got the ball, as you can see, the space is too congested. They lose it straight away, completely and utterly nullified. Not a single sniff. This means Palace are evidently and encouragingly showing them to go out wide to Doku and Savinho. But as soon as either of those wingers actually get the ball, that wide forward will shift across, creating a 2v1, which forces City backwards again. So now City is struggling centrally and now they're struggling out wide. The issue with City overloading in midfield is that those wide players aren't very effective or supported. Although Savinho and Doku are very progressive wingers and difficult for fullbacks to deal with, they're not that good. They are young, raw and not to a top level at all. Mitchell excels in defending 1v1 and he's more of a fullback than a wingback, and Munoz is ridiculously athletic. Pair those with another Palace shirt next to them for support and those City wide players have no chance, which slows down the play every single time. Palace did this all game. The work rate was incredible, and in the second half it became abundantly clear to Pep that those wingers did need support, hence why Akanji started overlapping. But again, another problem they ran into was how good Palace are at dealing with crosses. Lacroix, Richards and Gurhey were monstrous and continue to be in the second half. But before we address the second half, let's address the elephant in the room. Henderson was pretty lucky, and you can understand how City felt hard done by, but they did have another chance to score and Henderson saved, and Palace had a goal ruled out early too. Funnily enough, from a long throw, so you can add Palace to the trend of clubs bringing back the long throws. So City had their chances and their forwards were not good enough, and Palace simply just turned up to a great level in that department. City kept on pushing against a very crowded penalty box but didn't have an answer. It was a cup final performance. As I said, everyone turned up. It was simply heroic. They continued in the second half with the fall from low build-up, hitting short, then long, but most of their play consisted of hitting diags into Munoz, looking to bomb down the flank, which caused City some issues. Their biggest issue though was trying to score, and they couldn't. Any cross they put in, headed clear. Any space to find? No, there was none. Glasner's side could have run for days, and they executed their game plan to absolute perfection. In the end, City were racking up shots because they needed to, but they only actually managed 2 on target in that second half. So Glasner's side were the deserved winners on the day. The final had a bit of everything for entertainment's sake, but this to me made it pretty clear, if it wasn't already, just how good of a manager Oliver Glasner is. He's delivered European football to Selhurst Park in his second full season, to a club who are nationally mocked for always finishing mid-table. But more importantly, he's delivered silverware to this football club. He's always ranked and compared to the Iraolas, the Thomas Franks, Nuno Santo, Marco Silvas, but this sets him above those and backs what is already true. Oliver Glasner is one of the best managers in the Premier League. Thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. Where do you rank Oliver Glasner amongst Premier League managers? Is he within that top 5 bracket or is he just outside? Thank you for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one.